Hi, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here with our weekly update here on the internet, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. Thanks for joining us this busy anti-corruption week for your Judicial Watch, your anti-corruption watchdog. A lot to talk about. We've had new startling and disturbing revelations about the politicization of the FBI and the targeting of the Trump team. Apparently, as a result, new information about Hillary Clinton and her records and about what she was allowed to take with her from the State Department. You'll be outraged. And a new big Judicial Watch lawsuit against the state of California and Los Angeles over dirty voting rolls. First up is the FBI crisis that we have uncovered and the Justice Department crisis that is tied to it concerning the targeting of President Trump and the protection of Hillary Clinton. Now, we talked about last week about this FBI Special Agent Peter Strzok, whose text messages to his paramour, I think Miss Page, Lisa Page, a top lawyer in the FBI, became the subject of a lot of discussion because the messages, as reported initially, were anti-Trump and pro-Hillary Clinton. Well, the texts, or at least part of the text messages, have become public in response to pressure from Congress and, frankly, Judicial Watch. The Justice Department released them to reporters and turned them over to Congress. And the text messages show, and the most important text message, as best I can tell, show that the FBI at the top levels had it in for President Trump just before he was elected to office. In August, there's a text message between this FBI special agent and his paramour, where he talks about having an insurance policy in case President Trump is elected. And the context is, evidently, there was a meeting talking about the election with Andrew McCabe, the #2 official at the FBI, and then following up on that, they talk about this insurance policy. Well, it tends to coincide, that timing of the message, with the anti-Trump investigation targeting his alleged ties to Russia, which is a load of bunk, as we now know. And you have to wonder whether the FBI concocted reasons to spy on President Trump as insurance in case he was elected. What an outrageous abuse of power, if true. Now, there could be an innocent explanation to those text messages. You can go online and look them up and read them yourself. But I can't really think of any persuasive, innocent reason. Certainly, Robert Mueller secretly fired him 4 or 5 months ago after these text messages allegedly were discovered by the Inspector General for the Justice Department. So I want to know why it is this man is still anywhere near the FBI given these text messages. Is anyone in the FBI awake? Andrew McCabe, the #2, that we've already exposed as having conflicts of interest because of his wife's campaign taking money from Clinton crony Terry McAuliffe, the outgoing governor of Virginia. You're the #2 agent of the FBI beholden to one of Clinton's friends in this egregious way. And on top of it, we've got this FBI special agent who wasn't just any special agent. He was one of the counterintelligence department's top officials there within the FBI. So think of that. He's a spy. Based on his word, courts would authorize warrants to spy on American citizens. He was also involved in the Clinton email investigation. His name is all over the documents. Judicial Watch has the records that show, because we sued the FBI for records about the Clinton email investigation. And the FBI turned over dozens of pages of records with Peter Strzok's name on it. So we've got this key decision maker, both in the Clinton email investigation and the Russia collusion investigation, has been exposed as someone who hates President Trump and had, quote, insurance in case he won office. That's a crisis for the FBI. You know, it's interesting. I was on Fox News earlier this week, and I talked about shutting Mueller's operation down. I asked the question, do we need to shut the FBI down given these abuses? And I called it KGB-style abuses. I mean, you would have thought I was talking about blowing up the Capitol. You raise a question about shutting down an agency that's been repeatedly abused by an administration, namely the Obama administration, that targets political opponents. and the establishment class in Washington goes crazy. But we do have a problem in the FBI in the least. Whether we need to shut it down or not, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm allowed to ask the question, but I don't know the answer to it. But there's got to be significant reform, and I was pleased to see President Trump seems to be paying attention to these issues. He talked about having to rebuild the FBI. I mean, that's a good approach. Those are the things we need to be thinking about. And I don't understand why the number 2 of the FBI and this FBI special agent who was sending out these texts are still in the building over there, are still in the building over there. You know, we represent whistleblowers. We know what happens once an agency decides they don't like what you've done or have reason to believe you did something wrong. In the case of whistleblowers, they concoct reasons. Here you've got in-your-face evidence that something wrong happened and absolute inaction from the FBI leadership on it. Where is FBI Director Wray? Well, he was testifying last week defending his lack of action. A real crisis. And of course, we also have Mueller, the former FBI director, who, I will remind you, under his watch, the FBI worked with Lois Lerner's IRS to get IRS files on every political group in the country, and in order to try to figure out ways, working with the Obama Justice Department, to prosecute the very groups and entities that President Obama was criticizing and his IRS was suppressing. Again, Robert Mueller improperly got the files from the IRS of groups that were deemed to be inappropriately involved in politics. Thinking of ways to prosecute President Obama's enemies? I mean, that's the way the documents look like. Now then, he's now designated special counsel, and we're all supposed to fall down silent and mute. Mute, all right, mute. Well, he's a government official like anyone else, and I think the office is unconstitutional. That's a separate matter. But there's got to be accountability, and Rod Rosenstein, the number 2 official at the Justice Department who appointed him, because Sessions recused himself. Think of this, Jeff Sessions recuses himself, yet we have information the number 2 official at Robert Mueller's investigation, as you recall, sent an email to Sally Yates, the anti-Trumper holdover that President Trump had in as acting Attorney General, who violated her oath of office and refused to defend the rule of law and was fired by President Trump as a result. This was the issue over the travel ban. After all that happens, she gets an email from Andrew Weissman, the number 2 at Mueller's operation, who then was head of the criminal fraud section of the Justice Department, senior guy, says, "I'm in awe of you." So praising this misconduct by a Justice Department official. Now the follow-on stories to that, the Wall Street Journal found out he attended Hillary Clinton's election night party in the Javits Center up in New York. The official party, the big one. That's the one she would have appeared at if she had won. I don't know if I don't recall. Did she ever make a concession speech? I don't think she did that night. It got too late. So he's an activist. I don't know about you, but if you go to election night parties, you're pretty much a political activist. And he's the number 2 official charged with investigating the President of the United States. Sessions recuses himself, but it's okay, he's there. The Judicial Watch has done an analysis of the prosecutors who were hired by Robert Mueller. We found 10 registered Democrats, and we could not find anyone who is registered as a Republican. I know people have been said to be Republicans. There may be one Republican donor, but there's no one registered as a Republican. Mueller has got a real ethics problem on his watch. No one trusts that investigation, or the majority, according to one recent poll of Americans, don't trust his investigation and think there's a conflict of interest. So what does Rod Rosenstein say, the number 2? We make sure politics stays out of it. Well, if that's the case, then why isn't Sessions Attorney General? Can't he make sure politics stays out of his decision-making to enforce the rule of law? I tell you what, it's terrible corruption that's going on with respect to this investigation and targeting of President Trump. And the concern, let's take a step back. You've got this dossier created by Hillary Clinton's money, campaign money and Democratic National Committee money, being used by the FBI. Now we know it was also used by the Justice Department, a top Justice Department official whose wife also worked for the company that created the dossier, is talking and using the dossier as well, talking with the creators. What's going on there? And evidently Mueller's using the dossier as well. And Congress is being stonewalled on the information about how this dossier was created, who paid for it, whether taxpayers paid for it. I recall the dossier is being used to justify potentially spying on the incoming President of the United States or people close to him, and may be being used to justify a continued criminal investigation into this president and people close to him. And we don't know anything about it. Or actually, we kind of do, but the government doesn't want to officially acknowledge what everyone suspects because they know it would blow up the investigation. Again, shut Mueller down. I can't emphasize it enough. Now, I'm not here just to talk about it. I'm here to highlight the issues that, or to talk about the fact that we are taking action. Now, these text messages, we've been battling the FBI for these text messages. Once we found out about them, we said, hold on a second. We sued you for FBI records about the Hillary Clinton email investigation. This gentleman and his friend, I use the term loosely, are texting about Hillary Clinton. Why haven't we gotten the text messages? And I won't bore you with the legal back and forth, but essentially we were told to shut up and sit down. And if we give it to you, we give it to you. We also have sued for the dossier information, the payments and things like that. We have the government still refusing to confirm or deny the dossier exists. Rod Rosenstein is in before Congress talking about the dossier, and his lawyers are telling us they can't confirm or deny it exists. Who is running the show at the Justice Department? So we're in court trying to get this information. Congress has subpoenas, they're being ignored, but they don't go to court about it. We go to court about it. That's why we often get documents that Congress doesn't get. And to that end, we just sued for records about the demotion of this FBI special agent. Remember, I told you, Mueller demoted him, removed him from the investigation, and he supposedly is working in the HR department. And we were all told it was for personnel issues. And it was reported on when this guy was moved out, because he is a senior counter-intel guy in the FBI. And the response from the Justice Department was, well, it was a HR matter, something personnel related. They didn't tell us he was moved out because there was apparent conflicts of interest, and they needed to get him out of the investigation. So we filed a Freedom of Information Act request, and we've been stonewalled for 4 months. Well, now we know why we've been stonewalled, because it looks like the FBI, the Justice Department, and Robert Mueller didn't want anyone to know they had some anti-Trumper on their staff who probably had his fingers in every major decision the special counsel had made up until the point in time he was removed. So there's a cover-up going on. I've said it once, I'll say it again, we need a special counsel for the special counsel. The Attorney General should appoint a special counsel. Don't follow these regulations which are unconstitutional, which will create some sort of super counsel who evidently can never be fired, according to Rod Rosenstein, unless there's cause, which is ridiculous. Think about that. The President can fire the FBI Director, the Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, for no reason. But he can't fire the special counsel? How does that work in a Republican form of government? So anyway, to bypass that constitutional concern, the Attorney General can just appoint a special counsel, someone who reports to him, has access to resources, and is subject to appropriate oversight, unlike Mr. Mueller, to investigate what's been going on here. And we're being told time and time again we have to wait for this IG report, this Inspector General report. I don't know what's going to be in the report. My guess is it will be interesting information that will be disconcerting for those of us who support the rule of law. And my guess is there'll be a lot of indications the IG didn't investigate a lot of things that needed to be investigated in terms of the corruption of the Obama Justice Department and FBI under General Lynch and James Comey. That's why we do our own lawsuits, and that's why we do our own investigations. So we're on it, and we're going to tell the truth. We're not afraid to criticize the FBI, and I don't want to be lectured by anyone who says we can't criticize the FBI and can't suggest a different approach to how we handle federal law enforcement matters. Because if what I'm saying is true, there's got to be radical reform in the least of what's going on and how that agency operates. So a lot to be concerned about. Hillary Clinton. The corruption keeps on piling on. So we asked for documents. The concern is when you leave a public office like Secretary of State or Yuma Abedin, her top deputy, when you leave your office in a position like Secretary of State or a top official in the State Department, you basically go through exit interviews. And they try to figure out what records you have, make sure you're not taking anything improperly, and anything you do take, they know what you're taking, and they try to make sure if it's a government record or something they need, they keep a copy of. Well, this is what they did with Hillary Clinton. They talked to one of her aides, I just want to be sure I get his name correctly, Clarence Finney. Now, Clarence Finney was a then director of Hillary Clinton's Office of Correspondence and Records. So he was the negotiator on behalf of Hillary Clinton. So this is what the document says in the documents we received in our FOIA request about this removal process of documents by Hillary Clinton and Yuma Abedin. The Secretary's call log, grid, and schedules are not classified. However, they would not be released to the general public under FOIA. They are being released to the Secretary with this understanding. What? Her call log isn't subject to release under FOIA? Her schedules aren't released under FOIA? So the State Department under Barack Obama made this secret agreement that we just exposed with Hillary Clinton to keep her call logs, grid, and schedules secret. That's a violation of FOIA. It's a violation perhaps of even other laws. 16 boxes of personal schedules Hillary Clinton left with. 1 box of personal reimbursable receipts. Wouldn't that be interesting to find that? 1 box of personal photos. Also documents about her gifts. Can you say Clinton Foundation? And then Yuma Abedin was allowed to leave with Muslim engagement records. Muslim engagement records? Now, Abedin's mother is a controversial person because of her connections to the radical Islamic movement abroad. So this is the deal-making that went on under the Obama administration. We already knew that Hillary Clinton was allowed to take 60,000 government emails with her, some of which were classified, half of which she supposedly deleted or tried to delete. And on top of that corruption, they have a secret deal with her to keep these logs and call logs secret, and her schedules. This is why Americans are demanding an independent investigation into what Hillary Clinton was up to. I don't know whether she needs to be indicted or the law requires her indictment and prosecution, but given this FBI special agent who had it in for Donald Trump, Andrew Weissman, the number 2 at the Justice Department, James Comey, who was playing games with Hillary Clinton's non-prosecution, the infamous tarmac meeting that took place between Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton. By the way, we told the court last week that we have reason to believe a transcript of that Clinton-Lynch tarmac meeting exists. I can tell you more about that, but we told a federal court that. So we're pushing for that information, trying to extract that we believe exists from the government. But we need a new, fresh, clean investigation into the Clinton email scandal, and these documents show you why. Corruption isn't just here in DC. It's all over the place. I'm sure you're watching this, and if you're politically active in your local community, you could probably overwhelm Judicial Watch with some tips about corruption in your local community. At the local level, the city level, at the state level. And one of those big issues about corruption is related to election integrity. And Judicial Watch has found through our own analysis that there are too many states where they've got more people, where they have more people on the rolls, the voting rolls, than are eligible to vote. Now, federal law requires that states take reasonable actions to clean up their voting rolls. Doesn't mean they have to be 100% perfect, but it does mean that they do something. Now, we've already sued in Maryland for records about their efforts to clean up voting rolls. In Kentucky, which is probably one of the most egregious violators, we've sued recently as well. I've told you about that. Because the federal government doesn't evidently want to enforce the law. They didn't do it under President Obama, and this Justice Department has yet to do anything substantial on that yet. And California is a mess too. Evidently, they never remove you from the rolls. You could die, move away, you're always going to be there. They call you inactive, but you're still going to be on the rolls, and your name is subject potentially to being used by someone who's not you to vote. Dirty voting rolls can mean dirty elections. So how do you know if a state or your locality hasn't taken reasonable steps to clean up the voting rolls? Well, a pretty good indication are the numbers. And in California, as I said, you've got more people on the rolls than are eligible to vote. I think statewide it's 101% of the population's on the voting rolls. But when you go drill down into the counties, and specifically, we just sued this week California and Los Angeles over their failures to take reasonable steps to clean up the rolls. And Los Angeles, the numbers are terrible. Let me get the numbers here for you. They have 112% of the adult citizen population on the rolls in Los Angeles. 112%. And that's just a recipe for fraud. And it also shows that they're not doing what they need to do as required by law. So we filed this big lawsuit this week, and we'll see what happens. We hope that we are able to persuade California to do the right thing. I hope they don't take a political partisan approach to this rule of law effort. I suspect the way California is, they will. But we want the laws enforced. And I think California citizens and citizens of every state should have a reasonable expectation that their elections be fair and honestly run. And they cannot be assured that's the case if there are more people on the rolls than are eligible to vote. And again, the Justice Department isn't doing this. We had filed the first lawsuits like this against Indiana and Ohio. And the suits were, I think, settled or ended more or less after both states did the right thing to try to clean up the rolls. And in fact, the left is challenging key elements of our settlement in Ohio, I think, before the Supreme Court. Or it's Indiana, but one of the two states. I can't remember everything at all times, so forgive me. But the left is heavily invested in making sure that voter integrity measures go nowhere. So we expect the left to battle us here in California and in Kentucky and everywhere else we go. And the left has doubled down on this idea that we can't have voter ID, citizenship verification, states can't take reasonable steps to make sure dead people are on the rolls. And you got to wonder why it is they're so desperate to protect the ability to vote illegally. And I think it's because the left wants to be able to steal elections if necessary. I don't know how you can conclude otherwise. So Judicial Watch is doing things that few others do. We're taking on the biggest state in the union over dirty voting rules. In Los Angeles County, I don't know if it's the biggest county in the state, in the country, but certainly way up there. We're taking on the Justice Department, we're taking on the FBI, we're taking on the state of California because we're an independent watchdog group. And we think the citizenry have a right to know and have a right to clean elections and have a right that their public officials take steps to enforce the rule of law against corruption by government officials like Hillary Clinton, James Comey, and they enforce the rule of law to protect the rights of citizens to have their votes counted. Because if votes are being stolen, that means your civil rights are being stolen. So these are all serious issues, and Judicial Watch is pushing them as best we can. Sometimes it feels like we're the only ones doing all the heavy lifting here in Washington, D.C. But the lift is a lot easier thanks to the support that I know we have from folks like you watching, our supporters out there who support our work day to day. And of course, we've got a great staff here as well. I get to come on and talk about all the great things my colleagues do. But just so you know, our election integrity lawsuits, great lawyers pursuing that. Our battles with the FBI and Justice Department, great lawyers pursuing that. Of course, we get all the documents that we have to go through them with our investigators and our media folks. It's a great team here. And so I value them as much as I do our supporters because we can't do it without this massive team effort here at Judicial Watch. So we're still small compared to the government, though. It truly is a David versus Goliath, but I think we're up to it. So thanks for joining us this week. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.